We have a guest today that is going to open us. This is Jose. He's been here for his third time. He is the founder of the Jesus Crew Ministries, and he just came this morning from Daytona Beach. Is that right? So here he is. This guy is tireless. He goes all over the place. He goes to Kenya. He's in Israel. Anything that happens in the United States of America, he is there. I don't care if it's a rally in Washington, D.C. or the Daytona, whatever they're doing. Bike Week, was it? Bike Week, Sturgis. It doesn't matter. What's the football? Super Bowl. He's always there. So this is Jose. You're on. 64.
Well, thank you for having me this morning. And let's read Psalm 64. Hear my voice, O God, in my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words, that they may shoot in the secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They can commune of laying snares privately. They say, who shall see them? They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search, both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. But God shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly shall they be wounded. So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away, and all men shall fear, and shall declare the work of God. For they shall wisely consider of his doing. The righteous shall be glad in the Lord, and shall trust in him, and all the upright in heart shall glory. Amen. Well, I guess I can just share a little bit about, everybody has a story. I actually came in contact with this fellowship on YouTube. Since I traveled to Israel, I've been there several times, and I was just looking at some videos, and I come across this video of these guys that were going to hike from Jericho to Jerusalem, and I saw this guy walking barefoot, and I've hiked that same thing myself, but with hiking boots, and that was hard.
Because you're safe.
Yes. So then, I'm like, so it was this couple, that you guys know, Sergio and Rhoda. So all our Jesus Crew team watches their videos, anything they post. So, and that's how and then they mentioned something about Florida, and you know how that little video intro zooms in to this little church. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to be near that area because I was going to the Super Bowl in Miami. And I thought, and a friend of mine lives here in Sarasota. So I thought, well, when I'm here, I'll just stop by. And so we had the Super Bowl in Miami, then we had it in Tampa. And so both times I stopped by. And then last year, I think it was, the first Super Bowl I didn't because we didn't have time because it was a long drive. But the one in Tampa I did. And then last year from Daytona, I came over here. And then this year I'm doing the same thing. So we're planning on making it an annual trip. So, and once we start something, we just keep going because we've done Mardi Gras in New Orleans since 2000. We go every year. And then Fiesta in San Antonio, we've been doing it since 98. That's probably our longest, continuous trip that we do. But before all that, I was a drug dealer. That's where the Lord found me. And I didn't grow up in church at all, zero. Like I had zero knowledge of God, Jesus Christ. It meant nothing to me. All I knew is there were churches because it said First Baptist Church, United Methodist, Church of Christ, so the church was a church was a church. But in 1980, I had been to church. And let me see, in 1980, I had been to church. That was my second time in a church building. And the first one was some old lady. She was related to me. It was my grandmother's sister or somebody. I was like 5 years old, but I remember being inside of a church building. And then in 1980, it was my uncle. And he used to traffic drugs for the cartels. And he got murdered in Mexico. And so in 1980, we went to this funeral, and inside this building, this church building, the Catholic Church it was big. It was like 40-foot ceiling, and it was really beautiful. And of course, me and my brother, we were stoned out of our minds because I started doing drugs when I was 7. Because my uncles, when my parents would go party, they would actually leave us. They were our babysitters. So we got to see a lot of bad stuff at a young age. So then during that funeral, me and my brother were sitting in the very back row. And, I'm high on marijuana, and I'm just kind of looking around at this beautiful building. It had red carpet. It had big red cushion, velvet type seat cushions. And I noticed that there was a statue in the very back right next to me. And about every 10, 15 feet, there was another statue. So there was about 6 of them. I noticed on this side, and then there was 6 on this other side. And they're all looking to the front. And there's a lady holding a baby in the front. So I asked my brother, I said, hey, we were whispering in the back row during the funeral. I said, hey, man, who's these guys? So my brother, he's staring. He says, man, I think they're the presidents of the United States. So I'm like, yeah, that guy looks like George Washington. He's got a big old, beard, an old guy. And so we were actually rewriting history. So way up at the top, something caught my eye, and there was a man hanging on a cross in his underwear. And I thought, man, what did he do? He must have done something really bad, So I asked my brother, because he knew everything. He was 13 at the time, and I was 14. I said, did you see that guy? And my brother said, he must have done something really bad. Because, man, look what they did to him. There's blood running down his arms. And it was a life-size, statue. And it was real, lifelike, because it had blood running down. The Catholics are really good at making idols. Yeah. So from then, the funeral was over, but I left there thinking, who was that man? What did he do? And what was his name? Where did he live? Did he live here? Did he live in South Texas? Because this was in the Rio Grande Valley. That's where I grew up. And so I left with that in my mind. So from then, every time I would see a cross or a crucifix or something with a cross, I would get that image back in my mind. So then that was in 80. So it got worse for me. We got more heavily involved in the drugs and drug trafficking and all that. I was in and out of jail 40, 50 times. And then I got busted trafficking drugs across a counties. And so I'm going to prison. Mm-hmm. I assaulted the officer, and I had a gun and just a big mess. So I was going to do at least 10 years. So that was in April of 84. In October, in the summer of 84, I'm just waiting to go to court in November. And I had nothing to do. Nobody's going to hire you. You're a felon. You're just a pothead, a drug dealer, a thief. Everything. We were known as the sorriest Mexicans in town. And we deserved it. That was the label we had. And I'm the oldest of six. There's 6 brothers and 1 sister. So, and all my brothers were doing drugs at the time, including my younger brothers that were 7 or 8 at the time. They were already getting high with us. And because when you don't grow up in church, you're just godless. You just do whatever suits you. But then something happened. There was a game room that got shut down, and this old man bought it. And he was from Fort Worth, Texas. And he was a little old man, and he's redoing this game room and turned it into a church building. And when they got done, well, they hung this sign, him and his wife, and it just said Christ Church. So we're across the street smoking weed, and we're watching them work, back and forth, taking stuff out, taking stuff in. And, he's done. He's finished. They hung up the sign. The doors are open, but nobody goes because this man, he's just a nut. He walks around town. He'd walk by our house talking to himself. Of course, we didn't know that he was actually prayer walking, but he'd prayer walk right in front of our house and say, "Hey, man, that crazy man's walking by." So he gets done, and one of my brothers says, "Well, man, that man's too happy. Yeah. He's singing. We could hear him. He's singing and humming." And so one of my brothers grabbed a rock and he throws it at him. And he didn't hit the old man, but he busted out the window in his church building. So that old man, he's looking around trying to figure out where that came from. He looks across the street and he spots us over there. He doesn't know if we did it or not, but he's going to come meet us. And he walks up like he's just, some bold guy walking up to us. And when I looked over and he's walking straight to me. And the first thing that I noticed is that this old man, he had a cross around his neck with a leather strap. And I guarantee you it was pretty close to 12 inches. I mean, it was a big cross. And a thought went through my mind just like that. You know what? Maybe this guy knows the man on the cross. And then it just went away. And I went back into like, man, we're going to mess you up if you come over here. Well, he comes over there smiling, all happy. And he says, "Okay, boys, which one of you boys did that?" So we kind of looked at each other and we laughed. Said, "Man, get out of here, man, before you get beat up." Said, "Well, I got one thing to tell you, boys. God loves you, Jesus loves you, and I love you." And I thought, man, is this guy a homosexual? I mean, you didn't hear men telling you love. That was not in our family, like I never heard that from my dad, from my grandfather. Nobody told me they love me. Us, we related love to sex. That's the way my mind thought. When he said that, I'm like, wait a minute, you should be mad. We just busted out your window. And he's happy and telling us he loves us. So we didn't know how to react to that. And he walked away, and we had nothing to say to each other. One brother went one way, another brother went one way, and I just sat there by myself thinking, man, what happened? Well, about a week later, one of my brothers, the third brother, I'm the oldest, then there's Richard, there's Marcus, Jesse, Carlos, Orlando. The third brother, he goes to this old man's Bible study that he had on Thursdays. Right. And what's really crazy is that it was about the size of this building right here. I'm telling you, it's about the same size. And so my brother goes, and all of a sudden, I don't see my brother anymore. He's not out with us at night. He breaks up with his girlfriend, and we never see him. We all live in a small house that's 2-bedroom. All the brothers sleep in one room. We had bunk beds. My parents had one room, and my sister slept in the couch. And when I'd come in at 2, 3, 4 in the morning from drug dealing, my brother was asleep. when we'd wake up, he was gone, because of course we woke up at noon or 1 o'clock, and he was already gone. And I remember one night, to go into our room, you didn't just walk in. You had to be very careful. So you would walk in and put your foot down because you might step on a bottle or a shoe and twist your ankle. So I remember I came in and I stepped in, cautiously so I wouldn't twist an ankle, and I touched the floor. And I'm like, man, that's the floor. So I pulled out my cigarette lighter and I turned it on, and there's nothing on the floor. Like somebody cleaned it. And I'm like, man, what got into Mom? So then I walk up, I had the lighter on and I walked to my bunk bed. I slept on the bottom, and my clothes is washed, folded, my socks are paired up, my shoes are in pairs right under my bed. I'm like, man, something must have happened to Mom's mind, because she never does this. So the following day, I woke up at noon, I'm in the bathroom and my mom's yelling at me, Jose, come here now. And I'm like, oh man, and that was kind of common. She'd yell at us all the time. And I walk over there, she's in our room, and she says, who did this? Like, did what? Who cleaned up the room? I said, it wasn't me. I thought it was you. So we find out that it's my brother Marcus. God had changed his life. He'd become a born-again Christian. So, wow, so he'd invite me to the Bible study. I said, no, I ain't going to that. And soon, one day I'm waiting to go do a drug run with one of my cousins. It's at 10:30 at night. And my brother's going to this Bible study. And he invites me. He's been inviting me like 100 times. And I said, well, I'm going to go this one time, man. But I'm getting high on the way over there. So I went with him. And, man, that night, if I can describe it, I'm high. I've been high for several years. I didn't get high. I stayed high. So I'm stoned out of my mind. It was a normal thing. It's a way of life for me. And I walked in, I sat down, and I just sat there, get it over with. And the old man's name was Brother Van Meter. And he's just there. He's a retired military guy. He's retired World War II veteran, Vietnam veteran. He'd been in the military pretty much all his life. And he he's preaching from the Gospel of Matthew, I believe. And then as he's preaching, about, I'd say half an hour into it, something hit me. And the way I describe it is, if you took a drop of hot syrup and you just dropped it on your head, how syrup runs real slow? I physically felt something and I touched my head and I'm like, man, what was that? And it freaked me out because, I'm like, man, who hit me? Who touched me? And I just felt this warm feeling like a heat. And it's just going down my body, man. I'm like, man, what in the world's happening to me? And all of a sudden I noticed that I'm sober. My high just went away and I start crying and I'm happy. And I'm like, man, this is weird. And it went all the way down to the soles of my feet. So then Brother Van Meter, it's Brother Van Meter, his wife Alberta. There was another black pastor there. His name was Brother Deaver, and my brother and me. So there's 5 of us. And he says, if you want God to change your life, I want you to come up here right now. And I just stood up without hesitation. And I walked to the front. And it was about the same distance from the back road to here. And I just stood there. And I stood there for like an hour and a half just weeping. Just like, man, I don't know what's going on, but I feel so good. Well, at the time, I had cirrhosis of the liver. So I didn't have much time to live. And I was only, 19 years old. And I'm facing 10 years in the state pen. And I got to go to court the next month to go get sentenced. I'm gone. So everything that could go wrong was going wrong. And I didn't have nothing to do. I couldn't, who do I pray to? I mean, I wasn't raised in church. I can't talk to God because I don't even know there's a God that exists. But that night, God met me. He came to me. And there was the black pastor. He pulled out a little bottle of oil. And he anoints my head and he starts praying. I don't know what he was praying. I didn't understand the language. But then he prayed in some unknown language that I'd never heard in my life, but it felt so good. Like there was a breeze being, like somebody was blowing in my face, and it was a sweet aroma. And then he starts saying things in English, and he says, "Thus saith the Lord, you shall be a witness to thousands and thousands, says the Lord. I will take you across the nation and other parts of the world, says the Lord." And that was the prayer. I walked out of there saved, born again, had no idea what was happening, but I knew I was a different person. On the way home, I take the joint that I had stuffed in my cap, I tossed it. Nobody told me to do that, but it was the Spirit of God in me now. I go home, I clean my room. I take all the posters. We had rock music, we had vinyl albums. You guys know what I'm talking about. I think everybody's at that age. I had 8-track tapes, boxes of music. I took everything and threw it out. We pulled a 55-gallon drum from the alley to the back door, and we just dumped everything in there. 1.5 pounds of weed, 1,000 hits of speed and cocaine. Whatever we had, it went in the trash. My brother soaked it with a gallon of gas, threw a match to it, and boom. And my dad was like, "What are you doing?" He thinks we're crazy. We're burning our stuff. And I told my dad, I said, "Dad, Jesus saved me." And he had no idea what I was talking about because he was the same way as I was. But throughout the years, the next day I go to Brother Van Meter's. And he's going to go out and evangelize. So I don't know a single Bible verse, but I'm going to go with him. And that's when I started handing out gospel tracts. And I remember I handed out a tract to this guy, and he says, "Well, what's this about?" "Well, it's about God, man." And I said, well, what about God?" "Well, man, he can change you. Because, man, last night, he changed me. And man, I hadn't even smoked weed today. And I didn't know what to tell him. All I knew is that God had done something to me. And you know what? What's really crazy is that since then, I have been going out every single week. Since then, it has not stopped in 38 years. So, God has done some amazing things. So when I was partying, when I was doping and dealing and all the stuff I was doing, I was involved in drive-by shootings when they weren't even known. So now the Lord saves me, and I'm like, man, people need to know this. Look what he's done to me. So this is what drives me to come to Bike Week and Sturgis and all these places, because if God can reach one person like he reached me, man, that'll be awesome. So I've spent the last several decades, telling people about Christ, and I travel wherever there's an event. Like Pastor Charlie said, I'm there. I'll try to get there one way or another. And I'm married. My wife that was with me back then, she was with me through the whole process. My wife, Amy, we've been together 41 years. We will celebrate 42 years in July. We got legally married. We lived together for 5 years until one of my cousins pointed it out to me and told me that I was living in sin. And I was like, "What are you talking about, man?" I'm in the Mexican world, if you hook up with someone, that's your wife. You're good. You don't do no marriage or license and nothing like that. You just say, "Hey, she's with me." And he says, "Well, you can't prove it to me that you're married." And I thought, man, and we were working. We were working at a cotton gin. So I said, man, how do I prove it? So I went to my dad. My dad was a supervisor. "Hey, Dad, I'm taking off at lunchtime." And, in a cotton gin, it's real noisy. So my dad's yelling at, what's wrong? Are you sick or what? I said, no, I'm going to go get married. And he said, what? Married? So, well, don't do anything till I get off of work. I called Amy. She was visiting her mom. She'd been staying with her mom for a week. So I called Amy and I said, hey, I'm coming into town. It was about an hour drive. Said, well, aren't you at work? I said, yeah, but I'm coming in because we're getting married today. And she said, well, okay. So we had $100. That's all we had to do our wedding. So with those $100, we went to the pawn shop and got this band right here, $15, still on my finger since then. She bought one for her. She bought a dress for a few bucks and a cake and the marriage license. And so we did the whole wedding for $100. We waited till my dad got off of work at 7. Two of my drug dealer buddies came, that the Lord had saved. They were my best men. And Amy said, I did too. And man, boom, we've been together since. So it's been an amazing journey. And I know if it wasn't for the Lord, believe me, none of this would be possible. So I'm very thankful, because we have a message. It's so powerful. And these people need to hear it. And it doesn't matter. I've been spit on. I've been hit. I've been knocked down. Man, it doesn't matter. These people need to hear the gospel. And, when it's our day, it's our day, so I'm just going to keep going till either the trumpet blows or I die, who knows. But I'm very excited, it's this fire that God put in me it doesn't go out, and I've had guys, man, you need to slow down, man, you're going to get burned out. And I'm like, dude, how can the Spirit of God get burned out? It ain't me. It's something supernatural that God does. And so he just keeps sending you, and if you're saying like, hey, God, here am I, send me, he will send you. So not everybody's called to be out on Bourbon Street at 3 a.m. or, at Bike Week. But there's things to do. We can go to places, we can go witness. I mean, I know you guys go to these projects, things. Heck, somebody needs to go there. I can't go there, but you guys can. And this is what makes Christianity fun, going out. Because I talked to several people at the bike rally. They grew up in church all their life, and when they were in their teens, they just departed from it. Well, guess what? The reason they depart is because they never got involved in anything. They just come to church and all they're told is, don't be having sex before marriage and don't get drunk and don't do this and don't go watch this. And so they put all these, things on them, restrictions, and they grow up. And I told him, I said, dude, I told this guy, I said, man, you know what you are? You are a bad sinner. That's all you are. And he's looking at me. What are you talking about? I said, well, man, you know what? I was a good sinner. You're a bad sinner. Because when you go out, you can't even sin right, man. Because when you're smoking or drinking, you're thinking, man, I'm going to hell. I shouldn't be doing this because I'm going to hell. Because when you've been raised in the church, you had the fear of God. No matter where you go, you still think that way. Man, I know you feel guilt and ashamed. But when you grow up with like me, you're a good sinner. Because, man, you don't know about hell. You're just going to enjoy it all you want. You're not thinking about, man, if I die today, I'm going to hell. So I'm like, dude, and then he said, man, you're so right, man. I still think about heaven. I think about hell. And I said, see, man, you're a bad sinner, dude. You need to come over and come back. Quit wasting your time. Yeah. And he agreed, so it was good. We handed out about 1,000 tracts. And I'm going to be going back to Texas today. I'll drive all through the night till I get there. Actually, I got to go to Houston, San Antonio, and then home. But, whenever I'm in the area, I will definitely stop by again. And, another thing that I noticed just today at Brother Van Meter's little church building, he had this exact thing hanging on the back this exact thing. I'm talking exactly like that. And I'm like, man, I saw that. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. You know, but Brother Van Meter, he passed away in 93. But, you know, he taught me a lot of things. And one of the main things that he taught me, which I think was so awesome, is he taught me to read my Bible. And so I still read it. It's actually, he gave me this exact Bible right here. It travels with me. Wherever I go, it goes with me. And he put me on Brother Van Meter was like a military guy. So he was real strict, you know, but he was nice at the same time. And I remember he was giving me some instruction. And it was me and another drug dealer buddy that I led to the Lord, you know, 3 weeks after I got saved. I called my 8 best drug dealer friends. I called them up and I told them, hey, man, come over. So they thought they were coming over for a drug deal and drugs and stuff because I'd been saved for a week. So they start arriving with their 6-packs and 12-packs and weed and heroin and everything. And they're all smoking and talking and chatting until they all got there. I said, okay, guys, everybody's here. I want to tell you something. Last Friday, I went to this little Bible study, and Jesus Christ saved me. And as soon as I said that, 2 of the guys walked out. They didn't say, see you later, bye, goodbye, God bless, nothing. They just walked out. 5 minutes later, another guy walked out. A few minutes later, the other guy walked out. I was left with 3 guys. They stuck around, and they hung out with me. They were my friends, you know. These were my good friends, you know. And one of them, his name was Tim Townsend. And Tim Townsend, he was a white dude. His family owned some land, but he was a drug dealer friend with me. So 3 weeks later, Tim calls me up and he says, hey man, are you still doing that Jesus stuff? I said, yeah. He said, man, can you come over and talk to me? I said, yeah. So I told my brother Marcus, I said, hey man, Tim wants to talk to us. So we walked to his house. He was about 5-6 blocks away. And when I knocked on the door, I could see through the screen door and come on in. He had the music blaring. He was 10 years older than me. And he had a stack of albums, two or three stacks this high, vinyl. He is a hippie from the 70s. And he pushed the coffee table to the side. He went to the kitchen, grabbed a chair, set it right in the middle of the room. And he said, man, I want Jesus to save me now. And he just stretched out his hands and he said, Jesus, save me. And I looked at my brother. Well, I don't know what to do. I've been saved 3 weeks. So I looked at my brother. I said, well, what do we do? You know, I mean, the guy wants to get saved. And so we're like, so I told my brother, I said, come over here. So while we go over here, had a little conference meeting, Tim's still there. Jesus, save me, Jesus, save me. So I go over there. I said, man, how does he get saved? And I'm like, man, well, my brother said, I don't know. I said, well, I was reading today at the park. I read a scripture that if there's people sick, that we should anoint them with oil, you know, and I was reading in the book of James. So I'm 3 weeks into my Christianity, right? So I'm like, well, so we walk back to Tim. He's still shouting to God in his living room. I said, hey, Tim, do you got any oil? And he says, well, I got what kind of oil? I said, it doesn't matter, just oil. He said, well, I got Crisco. I said, that'll work. So he gets up, goes to the kitchen. He comes back. He gives me the bottle of oil, and he sits back down. Save me, Jesus, save me. So I screwed off the cap, and I start pouring the whole oil on him. There was oil everywhere, man. It's coming down his face, down his back. And you know, he's talking and shouting, and he's bubbling oil on. Yes, Jesus, yes, Jesus. And you know what? God saved Tim that day. He saved him. And man, you know, it's just amazing what God does. Of course, I don't do that anymore. You know? But anyway, you know, the Lord saved my one of my good drug buddies. Since then, out of those 8, the Lord has saved 4. 2 have died in drug deals, and the other 2 are in prison for life. So the 4 that listened, they got saved. The 4 that rejected it, they're gone. You know, and hopefully the other two, maybe the Lord will save them in prison. You know, I still pray for them, so that's all we can do. You know, but we thank God for His grace, His mercy. I'm so thankful, you know, and we'll continue to keep on sharing the gospel. I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you guys for what you guys are doing here. Thank you for giving me a few minutes here, and I could go on for hours, but you know, thank y'all so much, and God bless y'all, you know. Thank you.
Okay, you notice the one thing he didn't do is just typical of Jose. He has a ministry. Ministries cannot function without help. He posts on YouTube videos constantly, and he'll let you know each time he has a need. A couple weeks ago, he broke an axle. It broke right in half on his car. And it held enough where he didn't die on the highway. It was an incredible thing. He pulled out and they said, look at this thing, man. So he posts these videos. You can follow him on YouTube. He will let you know where he's going, what the needs are. I told him, if you ever run short, I'll step in. You know, I've got other missionaries I'm taking care of every month. And so if there's a shortfall, I want you to email me. And he knows that. Other than that, you know, but they're always met. He's like, I got a need, $722.19. And the next email says it's down to $418.03. And he keeps going. And finally he says the need's been met. It's unbelievable. So, and he's tireless. He goes to bed at 3 in the morning. He's up at 6 in the morning. He'll drive for 17 hours to get to where he's going. Support the Jesus Crew. He's doing a great thing. He stands out there with other people, and they just hand out tracts. And if somebody wants to talk, they talk. But they are getting the word out to people that, just like him, may never have heard of Jesus. So please, whoever you are listening, if you're watching, if you hear this later, think about supporting the Jesus Crew. You can email me directly. I'll give you his email address, and he can give you all the information, where he posts his videos, what he's doing, etc. He can put you on his email list. But please consider that, all right?